And now we will be talking about the Hind Rajab Foundation. It's a story that went globally and touched every single human heart out there. So the story about Hind Rajab Foundation will be told by Jake Romm.
To conveners and to the jury, thank you for inviting me to speak today. My name is Jake Romm, and I'm here in my capacity as a representative for the Hind Rajab Foundation. Although we are a young organization, I imagine that many in the room will already be familiar with our work. But for those who are not, allow me to make a brief introduction. The Hind Rajab Foundation was established in 2024 by several volunteer lawyers and activists determined to use both national and international justice systems to hold Israeli soldiers to account for their war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide in Gaza. Our incredible research team is capable of tracking the Israeli military as it commits crimes across the Strip. We know where and when these crimes are occurring, and we know who is committing them. Based on this research, we compile extensive dossiers of evidence and build prima facie legal cases, which we then present to prosecutors in the relevant national jurisdictions, under the theory of universal jurisdiction for traveling soldiers, or under the principle of nationality for dual nationals, as well as to the International Criminal Court when appropriate. Crucially, our work focuses on the rank and file Israeli soldiers, from the commanders down to the lowest ranking infantry. The choice to focus on the rank and file, to cast as wide a net as possible, is not motivated by a desire for easy wins, as if such a thing were possible in the present environment. The culture of impunity that undergirds the daily atrocities committed in Gaza permeates all levels of the Israeli military. Even if high-ranking officials face scrutiny or arrest warrants, and even this has been woefully lacking, individual soldiers feel themselves beyond the reach of the law. This is readily apparent from the brazenness and glee with which Israeli soldiers document and publish their crimes on social media. In order to begin breaking this culture, states must impose consequences, not in a piecemeal fashion, not on a few of the worst individuals, but on all of them, everywhere. Only a concerted global effort will puncture this wall of impunity. This is why international mechanisms, though welcome and though an important aspect of our work, are not and ought not be the primary actors in bringing Israeli genocidaires to justice. International mechanisms, as we have seen, move slowly and suffer from a lack of resources and from a vulnerability to political meddling. They are therefore ill-equipped to handle the vast number of perpetrators who must be brought to trial. Instead, action must be territorialized. States must make themselves into sites of accountability. Our work therefore focuses primarily on national courts, where we have already enjoyed some success. Investigations into individual soldiers have been launched in Peru, Romania, and elsewhere. In July, for example, Belgian authorities arrested and interrogated 2 visiting IDF soldiers in response to one of our filings. And although the Belgian authorities ultimately released the soldiers and referred the case to the ICC, the arrests and the firm invocation of universal jurisdiction were steps in the right direction. There has yet to be a conviction, but this is an iterative process. Each request for prosecution is more than just a legal document. It is also a way to create a record and a narrative. In each filing, we charge individuals with both war crimes and genocide because it accurately captures the scope of their crimes, but also because it is a way of situating each violation within its proper context. The destruction of civilian property not justified by military necessity, particularly dwellings, for instance, is a war crime, but it is also one of the primary modes by which Israel is rendering the Gaza Strip uninhabitable. It therefore must also be understood as the constituent act of genocide, of deliberately inflicting on the Palestinians conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction. That is, the charge of war crimes alone, though heinous and serious, fails to capture the severity and totality of what has occurred and continues to occur in Gaza. The law is reactive and cognizes only discrete harms, but the crime of genocide, unlike war crimes, is necessarily systemic in nature. It is a crime which implicates the whole of the perpetrating society. Further, the recognition of what has taken place in Gaza as a genocide places affirmative legal obligations on states, in addition to those already imposed by the Geneva Conventions and other treaties. As our work has proceeded, states, initially reluctant to collaborate, have become more willing to pursue accountability. Recently, for instance, we have begun working closely with Europol to assist with war crimes investigations across the European Union. Every day, the world becomes smaller for Israeli perpetrators. There are a number of factors contributing to this development, but one is the simple work of naming which a legal filing accomplishes. Each charge pins the perpetrator to their deed in the historical record, and because the individual acts as a cog within the Israeli military, the state is pinned to the deed as well. As more and more filings are submitted, evidence against individuals creates, in a pointillist fashion, a composite picture of the totality of Israeli criminality in Gaza, a picture which becomes overwhelming in its horror. The political case against Zionism, then, is bolstered by the legal cases against its enforcers, and vice versa, thus increasing the prospects of success with each filing. The law is clear, and the tools necessary for state action have long been available. The problem is only one of political will. Like working a muscle, states become more comfortable and familiar with the long dormant tools at their disposal, the more they're compelled to use them. And the more states so compelled, the more they are collectively able to protect one another from political backlash and to articulate and enforce a vision of international law which truly applies to the weak and the powerful alike. Political will stems from popular mobilization, from the Palestinians, from organizations like ours and many others, from tribunals like this, from people of conscience like those gathered here and around the world, who do what states will not, who demonstrate that accountability is not only possible, it is necessary, and it is non-negotiable. The recent so-called ceasefire, which Israel has been violating since it began, makes this pressure even more urgent. There is a risk that states will use this slight downturn in the killing to return to the status quo, thus paving the way for the resumption of the genocide in its accelerated phase. It is incumbent on all of us, however, to keep up the pressure such that there will be no return. Because for the people of Palestine, the status quo means only more dispossession, displacement, and death. Jean-Paul Sartre stated at the 1967 Russell Tribunal for the Vietnam War, from which this tribunal draws inspiration, quote, "This crime of genocide is perpetrated under our eyes every day, making accomplices out of those who do not denounce it." His words ring just as strongly today, but he did not go far enough. Denunciation without action is still complicity at worst, or an unacceptable derogation of duty at best. Let us recall the International Court of Justice's decision in the 2007 case regarding the genocide in Srebrenica. There, the court held that states are obligated to employ all means reasonably available to them to prevent genocide, and that this obligation arises at the instant that the state learns of, or should normally have learned of, the existence of a serious risk that genocide will be committed. We are well beyond a serious risk. The genocide is happening as we speak. This obligation to act became operative at least as far back as October 2023 and becomes more urgent with each passing day. Action, by which I mean the arrest, prosecution, and punishment of all those who have perpetrated or are complicit in this genocide, and nothing less is our demand. It is my sincere hope that one day soon, these trials will take place in the courtrooms of a free Palestine, before Palestinian judges, before a Palestinian jury. That will be true justice. But until then, it is the legal obligation of every state in the world to prosecute the Israeli genocidaires wherever they may be found. To that end, esteemed members of the jury, we urge you in your report to stress the legal and moral duty of all states to undertake these prosecutions in their national courts in order to achieve a modicum of justice for the victims and the survivors, and to begin breaking Israel's wall of impunity. Thank you.